Ha! You again! Welcome back. This is Estates and Trusts at William Mitchell College of Law. I'm Professor Donna Byrne, and this is the third part of the online modules that goes with Chapter 1 of Anderson and Bloom 4th edition. After this module, and it is very short, you should be able to list several types of non-probate transfer and distinguish between probate and non-probate property. Okay. So back to Jeremy and Alice. Remember them? Yeah. We appointed a personal representative. That was Jeremy. And now we have to decide two things, or Jeremy does, and he wants your help. First is, what stuff are we dealing with? What assets that belong to Alice do we have to transfer to someone else? And who gets what, right? Who are we transferring them to? Now the first question we answer by making an inventory, and you'll do that in your second skills and values assignment. The second question is a little bit trickier though. Go. There we go. First of all, if the estate is large enough, the IRS and perhaps a state revenue department may get some taxes. We will focus on taxes later. I'm having you skip over that part of Chapter 1 because we'll come back to it when we get finished with wills. Believe me, I love taxes, so it's not that I don't want to do it, it's that we're saving the good stuff, kind of like dessert. Okay, but after the tax part, our system is kind of like a big sorting machine. Each slot is like a different kind of probate or non-probate transfer, and each kind of transfer will tell us who gets whatever it is. Sometimes there's a document related to the assets that tells us who gets it next. Insurance policies, joint tenancy trusts, these all come to mind. There are documents, they have some meaning. Sometimes there's a will that tells us who gets what. And sometimes we rely on an intestacy statute to tell us who should be first in line. Okay, when we don't need a will or a statute, because we have a document that tells us who gets what, or we have a kind of title that tells us who gets it, we say that's a non-probate transfer. So, for example, insurance policies and retirement plans are contracts, either between the insured and an insurance company, between an employee and an employer, or an employee and an employer's retirement plan. Those are contracts. They specify what happens during life when money is going into the plan, and then they specify what happens when the insured person or the employee dies. Right? And it's all just part of the contractual terms. Joint tenancies, I think it's just joint tenancies. Forms of owning property where each person has an undivided interest in the whole. Remember this from property? It's like you own the whole thing, you just have to share until the first person dies, and then the other person still owns the whole thing, just doesn't have to share anymore. We don't need the probate system in that case. We don't need the probate system to tell us who gets those assets. Moreover, there's nothing anybody can do. Those are kind of resolved already while the decedent was alive. So those are non-probate transfers. Oh, I told you this part already. Okay. And non-probate transfers are effective for transferring non-probate property. Another big one for non-probate transfers is trusts, and we will spend quite a bit of time talking about trusts. You probably did some of this in property, although I think the coverage of trusts is not as even as with some other topics. A trust separates legal title from beneficial ownership. A trustee has legal title, but for the benefit of other people. That's also a kind of non-probate transfer. Okay, so once we have a personal representative, the personal representative collects all the assets, and then we decide for each asset whether it's a probate asset or a non-probate asset. And non-probate assets basically tell us where they're supposed to go. Probate assets, or probate property, which is mostly anything held directly in the decedent's name, Probate property is distributed under a will or by intestacy. Examples of non-probate transfers were insurance, joint tenancy, and trusts. We will see more of these as we go along. Okay, now coming up in a future module, what is a trust and how is a trust like SpongeBob, my little niece's absolute favorite cartoon character?